When prices go up, what kind of essentials do you cut back on? Household staples? Leisure activities? What about your cosplay gear?
It's only expensive if you make it expensive. You can keep things very low budget. You can keep things very, very cheap. You don't have to make things expensive. I sometimes do, but that's because I'm OCD and I like the highest of details, so.
That's a cosplayer in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And as you might be able to tell by the weapon she's aiming directly into the lens of the camera, she's dressed as the Widowmaker from the Overwatch series, along with another person dressed as the Widowmaker down on the floor. They, along with Princess Zelda and Wolf Link, this man and his animatronic bird, and all sorts of other creatures, made their presence known at MegaCon in London over the weekend, an event that gives space for cosplayers to immerse themselves inside of their favorite characters. Now, for those who aren't familiar with cosplay, it's the art of dressing up as a character from a specific subculture, like science fiction, video games, or anime. I guess you could say I've done a bit of cosplaying myself, dressing up as Australian rock star Chris Gaines from the Garth Brooks universe. But simply throwing on a bad wig and soul patch barely scratches the lengths cosplayers will go to bring their favorite characters to life, no matter how big your hand is. One market research company says that the global cosplay clothing market was projected to be around $4.8 billion last year, and that it's anticipated to grow to nearly $8.7 billion by 2033. One reason is that for DIYers, this hobby can require buying things like fabric, foam, sewing machines, and even 3D printers, in case you feel the need to fabricate yourself a Mr. Potato Head head. Or you could drop hundreds of dollars on an outfit that's already been made, like $125 on this cosplay Sonic perfect for Christmas gift for the ultimate cozy sleep, $260 on this Sonic the Hedgehog cosplay costume, or $550 on this nameless, bulky blue hedgehog mascot. And hey, if Sonic's not your thing, even just a plain hedgehog could set you back upwards of $400.
It can be a really expensive hobby, yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, as with anything, you can get it 90% accurate, but if you want to get it 95% accurate, it's not 5% more expensive, it just gets really gross.
As noted by this Star Wars cosplayer who seems very pleased to have his air passage obstructed, it costs a lot to look this good. But unlike Darth Vader, or whoever this man with a giant sword is intending to defeat, there's a single elusive foe that many cosplayers remain forced to grapple with: inflation.
Cost of living massively affects both myself and a lot of people, even trying to sell things, as the prices of buying things, whether that's cosplays, whether that's materials, whether that's just getting prints and places here, it really does affect people. That's
a cosplayer dressed as General Goru from Genshin Impact, who spent nearly $500 to create an outfit that honors the game's dog-like general, complete with authentic animatronic ears and a tail that wiggles.
For Genshin, because I was a buyer, Genshin tends to be quite complicated, so they tend to be quite expensive. Of course, I've got the animatronics as well, which didn't come cheap. But you can really start with any sort of budget. If you've got a sewing machine, if you've got sort of like the basic steps, you can go, or you can even closet cosplay. And that's a great place to start for a lot of cosplayers.
This man here is a retired design technology teacher who spent some of his retirement time at comic conventions showing off his creations, like this thing. He makes his own robots and scavenges parts from broken electronics, and justifies his investments here as though it were any other kind of hobby.
It is an expensive hobby, but then I compare it to having a Premiership football ticket, season ticket, or just a nice set of golf clubs, or a good fishing kit or whatever. So along those lines, it can be expensive, but not that bad.
One key cost driver these days, our Robot Man notes, is traveling to and from various conventions for appearances.
I think the main issue for us, because we do so many conventions, is the cost of fuel. Because we run a van purely for the hobby, the cost of the van and insuring, taxing and fueling the van is probably a big part of it for us.
Now, as I mentioned, this convention video comes to you out of the United Kingdom. Yeah, sorry, those guys aren't actually on Hoth. And it's worth mentioning that even though the US has been contending with inflation since the pandemic, we haven't been the only ones. As seen on this chart from the Financial Times, recent inflation throughout the Eurozone and in the UK has generally outpaced that of the US. And according to the Associated Press, after inflation hit a peak rate of 9.1% here in the States back in 2022, it's steadily been trending down. And while it crept back up slightly in December to 3.4%, Many experts believe it's still on track to achieve a so-called soft landing, closer to the Federal Reserve's target inflation rate of 2% without going into a recession. Of course, even without inflation, not everyone has a cool $400 in their pocket to drop on a generic hedgehog. But as many of our outfitted friends here have alluded to, it's not always about how much cash you drop on those butterfly wings.
It can be an expensive hobby, or it can be as cheap as you make it. It depends how slavishly you want to stick to the original character, but because you're putting a twist on something, you can make it cheaper.
This woman is an incredibly experienced cosplay designer who's made a career out of making period mashup costumes for film and TV, who notes that putting in a little time to shop around can help secure a look that's both appropriate and affordable.
I always say to people, buy the best quality fabric that you can afford, and then hunt around and look for the accessories, you know, car boot sales, charity shop. It's amazing what you can pick up. But, you know, go for good quality fabric, because that's going to hang nicely, it's going to look nice. And at the end of the day, you know, you want your outfit, mannequin, garments to look the best they can.